right, hey, what's up, y'all? We are here today to talk about our 5-week update on our current SHT Real Foodie Masterclass progression. I've got some useful tips and pointers that have come out over the past couple of weeks, had some really good conversations with some people, so I want to share that. A couple of FAQs, and just maybe a little bit of inspiration and motivation to nudge you along this week, especially leading up to our next meeting. So first of all, our next meeting is going to be exciting. It's going to be awesome. And just like all the other meetings, it doesn't matter how diligent you've been with everything, whether you were able to do the low carb or not, or even if you're still struggling with the basics, just keep coming to these meetings because this is where you learn information. They're dynamic, they're interactive. You have to sit there and go through it. So no matter where you are in your personal journey and progression, still make this meeting because this is going to be a really fun one. At this meeting, the methodology focus is going to be vegan. So we've got a lot of really good information we're going to cover on the vegan methodology, what we like about it, what we don't like about it, how we can incorporate some of its principles into what we do in the SHT. And then we're going to talk about, because we were supposed to be or attempting to be a little bit low carb these past couple of weeks, we're going to talk about our safe starches, what makes them safe, and just have a really good discussion around that. And then we're also going to get into a little bit of intuitive self-testing. So I'm going to bring a starch, I'm not going to say which one it is, and we're all going to sample it and go through a little self-testing protocol together. And that tends to be really fun because then when you learn how to do this stuff, you can teach it to your friends and family members and have a good time with it. And then also we're going to talk about a cleanse and then what that entails. And for those of us that are ready, we're going to go for a couple of weeks without dairy, nuts, seeds, and legumes, and maybe some other considerations. And we'll talk about how to strategize around that. Because remember, the ultimate goal of this SHT way of eating, just the nutrition piece, is freedom from being neurotic about food, but also understanding that we have this general protocol that we're trying to follow that is very forgiving, it's very livable, very doable, but within that general protocol, we have to do some experiments to see what things work best for us. One of those experiments is low carb, one of those experiments is cleanse. We want to experiment with fasting protocols, self-testing techniques, and then understanding these different popular methodologies. So that's the intent behind messing around with something like this. Now we have the rest of our lives to experiment with this stuff, but we still need to go through the learning process because the learning is where it's at. Colby and I had a really good discussion this past week about the first meeting, everyone shows up and everyone is super excited about getting to this new program and learning this new information and all the potential changes they're hoping to experience, right? And if we could just show up to every meeting, every day with that kind of motivation, life would be so much more amazing, right? But the motivation piece fizzles out for some reason, and it happens to all of us. But what's crucial is the education and the learning that goes on behind the scenes. Because once you learn this information, you can't unlearn it and you can't help but make better decisions. And it's like over time, that cumulative wisdom starts to add to better actions and better decisions. So the learning process is super crucial. And then once you start to experience benefits from it, you get the motivation that makes you want to keep doing it and do it longer and do it better and optimize things even more. So anyway, this meeting is going to be amazing, but I did want to talk about a few things that came up over the past few weeks and some FAQs that we might be able to develop some good discussions around. So first of all, I've had a great visit with Dawn Paxton. I got her permission to share this information. I was hoping I could get her on camera. But so anyway, I had a good visit with Dawn Paxton. And, as we go through these progressions and just in general, we're always trying to keep our ear to the ground and pay attention to people that are having a difficult time or what we perceive to be a difficult time. I think we're the veterans of us, and especially the people that are the group leaders and in the executive tribe, are very sensitive to people, having a challenging time because we want everyone to have a good experience. We want everyone to come into this and just have all the things happen for them that they want. But the deal is, sometimes it just takes time, and we don't know how long it's going to take for certain individuals. Everyone's going to have a different journey and a different experience. And so the question as far as experiencing the changes that you want to see is how diligent can you be and how long can you be diligent and how long is it going to take for your body to undo and unravel all the dysfunction that we've accumulated over the past, whatever it is, decades for most of us. And that, again, that journey is going to be different for everyone. Everyone comes into this wanting all these great changes, and some people do. Like, there's people that, like, I see them even now, and I'm just like, oh my God, you look completely different. It's only been 4 or 5 weeks into this whole deal. But the majority of the people that experience these great transformations, it doesn't happen in 4 and 5 weeks. It doesn't happen in 8 and 10 weeks. You know, they see some things happen. I mean, they experience a lot of great things. I was talking to Dawn, and the reason I'm bringing Dawn up is because I see her every morning at the 5 a.m. or most mornings. And you know, the first few weeks, you know, she was wanting the body composition change, like all of us do. And I told her that I felt like I could see it in her face, like she's, you know, her body's changing. And a couple other people said something to her, but she wasn't seeing it. She did say that she was acknowledging she was experiencing all these other changes, like more consistent energy levels, a more consistent mood. With her boyfriend or husband, you know, he was even mentioning like, wow, like you're completely different now. Not as tired as before, sleeping better, you know, and that this way of living and way of eating is so much more livable than the restrictive paleo version that she came from, you know, because she's embracing some things that she couldn't embrace before, and she's seeing all these beneficial changes. So that was really good. But, you know, I just picked up from conversations with her because I would always ask her every morning how things are going. By the way, if I ever stop you and ask you like, hey, how's it going? Like, that usually implies I'm asking about the food because I care. I want to hear about it, you know. So it just kind of got the vibe from her that things weren't moving in the direction that she wanted to with the body composition piece. And you know, one of her inspirations is Amy G. And Amy G was someone that came over to this gym with her and joined this program around the same time. And she saw Amy go through a bunch of great changes, and that was part of her inspiration. And by the way, Amy G, you know, one of our you know, diehard SHT people now, looks amazing. Like in her first 4, 5, 6 weeks, didn't see the changes that she was hoping for, and now she looks like a completely different person. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is, and by the way, now Dawn is seeing the changes that everyone has been telling her that she's experiencing. Okay, so a lot of us have been saying like, you're looking different, like your body's changing. Well, she went and had a chiropractor visit, and the chiropractor was like, hey, you know, I don't know what you're doing, but your thighs are different, your hips, your waist is smaller, I can see it in your face. He's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And she said, well, I'm doing the SHT, and he happened to know what the SHT was because he's had some other people come in there. And so it's like sometimes we have to hear it from other people before we really start to see it in ourselves. But what I want to bring that all back to is there is no other way besides this way of eating, all right? The SHT is a very general, broad, forgiving, livable way of eating. And there is no other way. Like, this is real food at its best. So if you happen to be in this mindset of, you know, what's not working for me, I'm not seeing the changes that I want, what's not working for you? Like, real food is what we're teaching. And we're teaching you how to teach your body how to tap into its own fat stores for fuel. And I don't know any human being on the planet that is not going to benefit from that. The question is, again, how diligent are you? How diligent can you be? How honest can you be with yourself about your diligence? How many days can you accumulate of being diligent? What changes are you noticing and experiencing to make you feel like, okay, this is something that I know is beneficial, and maybe I'm not seeing the changes that I want in the body or in some other areas, but I have to be patient with it over time. And you have to facilitate these experiments that we're learning as we go through this so that you can see what works for you. And what I want to mention about that whole process is, for most of us, the greatest transformations that we've experienced did not happen in 4 and 5 weeks. The greatest transformations are usually 3 months, 6 months, a year, maybe longer. And I know that's not what a lot of people want to hear, but that's just the way that the body works, okay? And, you know, a lot of times you'll see a transformation posted on social media, you know, like a before and after picture and some other things. Well, that transformation did not happen overnight. That transformation was cumulative work over time. And if you'd have seen that person their first 4 weeks or 5 weeks, they did not look like that transformation that you typically see in those before and after pictures. But all that while, you have this cumulative undoing and unraveling of dysfunction and all these beneficial changes that are starting to accumulate. And the changes may be subtle, but they are cumulative over time. And, you know, there's a lot of analogies that we could bring into that. You know, like with working out, I don't see a benefit right away from working out, but if I stick with it over time, you know, within a month, I start to notice some things. And then 3 months for sure, I'm noticing things. And then 6 months and a year, I start to develop this capacity and this resilience and this strength and this mobility and all this other stuff. And it's the same thing with food. You know, like there's a great analogy in a book that I just read called Atomic Habits, where the guy talked about an ice cube being in a room that was like at 25 degrees, and the ice cube isn't melting, and then the room temperature raises up to 26 degrees, and then 27 degrees, still nothing happens, 28 degrees, 29 degrees, nothing happens, and then at 32 degrees, all of a sudden, the ice cube starts to melt. And you would, it's not that 1 degree was in and of itself what needed to happen. You had to go through that process of going from where it was before to where it is now. And the point with this is that most changes that we see are not overnight changes. They are the accumulation of stuff that has happened over a period of time. And then there's some kind of a tipping point or a breaking point. Or maybe you're experiencing a lot of other beneficial changes. Maybe not everything in all the directions that you want, but things are moving in a good direction. And then at some point, that thing that you're looking for changes as well. And then you have to pay attention to what other people are saying to you and noticing about your mood and your emotions and your energy levels and your body and everything else, right? This is a lifelong journey focused on health, and we are here to do something extremely important, okay? So we can't get too caught up in all that stuff. And at the same time, we totally understand everyone's passion to want to see all these different things change, because we're in it for the same reasons. We all want those changes as well. We just have to be patient, okay? So that's meant to be motivational. And what I'm trying to say here is hold on to the good things that are shifting. Be very honest with yourself about your personal diligence. Understand the importance of being 100% for as many days as you can in a row, because 80-20 is not going to cut it. For most of us, 80-20 is not going to cut it. We need those 100% days. We need to be spot on with it for as many days as we can. Be easy on ourselves when we're suboptimal, but try to get back on it and stay on it for as long as we can, because that's when we're going to start to accumulate change over time, okay? And then we have to keep learning and experimenting, because for some of us, I'm sure low carb was something that made a lot of things shift in our bodies. And then for some people, low carb may have been one of the most miserable phases ever. And that's perfectly fine. Well, now we need to go through this little cleanse phase. Maybe dairy is a problem for you and you don't know it. Maybe seeds are a problem for you and you don't know it. Maybe eggs are a problem for you and you don't know it. And so that's why we have to keep learning, keep tweaking, but all the while in the background, understand that we are doing what is necessary for health over the long term. This is real food at its best. And this is also teaching the body how to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, and metabolically flexible, and able to tap into its own fat stores for fuel. And everyone's going to have a different journey down that process. Keep learning, keep coming, keep doing all the things that we talk about at these meetings, okay? Now, some FAQs that came up that I thought were really great, and we haven't really necessarily addressed them anywhere, so I'm going to get these into the guides and some kind of a resource online for sure. Dawn asked about fasting and snacking. So if I snack, is that messing up my fast, or is it snacking? Okay, so let's just say you've moved away from 3 meals a day to your 2 meals a day. And maybe one of your meals looks like a snack. Is that snacking because it looks like a snack? No, I would not say that's snacking. It's once we move into the 2 meals a day, we're looking at a compressed eating window. Okay, so one of the potential of 2 meals a day is a compressed eating window. So let's say that we have in our 2 meals a day, we're doing a morning and evening meal. First of all, if you have something in between, that's perfectly fine. Maybe just make it one thing in between. And maybe that looks like a snack more than anything else. Is that considered snacking? Not necessarily, because you're still at worst case scenario like 3 meals in the day, right? Once we start to get outside of 3 meals or more than 3 meals and a snack, then I think you're starting to get into the realm of eating too often. But if we're in 2 meals a day, and let's just say that those 2 meals are close together, it doesn't matter how big or small those snacks or meals are, because you have so much space on the outside of those meals. So it's not necessarily considered snacking. And if you have a compressed eating window, let's say that you have, you're eating it, you have your first meal till maybe 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock, and then you have your last meal of the day around 6 p.m. or 7 or 8. Well, those meals are close together, and if you happen to have something in between, I don't think that's that big of a deal, because you have so much space on the outside. So to answer the question, if a meal looks like a snack, it doesn't mean you're snacking. What we want to get away from is, punctuated meals and food all throughout the day, which is disrupting the body's ability to tap into its own fat stores for fuel. So we have to have space for the body to tap into its fat stores for fuel. All right, so just understand that. If I've got meals close together and I have a lot of space on the outside, I'm pretty flexible with what I can do inside that space. If I have a meal in the morning and a meal in the evening, I want to try to maximize that space in between, and maybe at the most I have 1 snack or 1 meal in between those 2 meals on the outside, okay? And then, is it normal to be ravenous at night? especially if you're doing 2 meals a day or maybe even 1 meal a day or a snack and a meal in the evening. Yeah, I don't know that it's normal. I think by the time I get home and I get into my eating mode, like I'm pretty hungry. I can put away some food. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, okay? We do want to be aware of how much we're eating and the tendency to overeat. And I think the best way to manage that is to have a meal, to prepare your food, have your little main dishes, your meats and your veggies and your greens and maybe a little bit of dessert set off to the side, and make that your meal. And then when you eat that, don't allow yourself to go for seconds unless you really feel like it, So eat your main meal, sit with it, give yourself about 10 to 15 minutes to let it register with the body. And usually for most of us, that's good enough and you don't want to go back for seconds. But if you do after that, perfectly fine. And then a lot of times we may have a dessert, from fruit or maybe a little bit something slightly sweet like some dark chocolate or something. That doesn't have to be with your meal, okay? It's not considered snacking if you have dinner and then just before bed you have a little bit of fruit or something like that. I'd say that can all be lumped into that evening meal, okay? So that's perfectly fine as well. But is it normal to be ravenous? I don't know. I mean, it just depends. If I eat 1 meal a day, I tend to, when I eat, be pretty hungry. If I'm eating 2 meals a day, I don't know. I'd say just pay attention, be aware of it. If you feel like you're overeating, maybe that would be your indication that 1 meal a day is not for you. Maybe 2 meals and spacing them out a little bit, or dividing the food up a little bit is going to be a little bit better for you. And I'd say just having a conscious participation in the process and paying attention is more beneficial than anything else, and keep asking questions so we can help you understand what's best for you, as far as that goes. And then we already talked about it's okay to have fruit after dinner, and that would not be considered a snack. I'd say that'd be lumped into that evening meal. Something else that Dawn said was working really well for her is number one, the journaling, which I absolutely love to hear. We haven't even really covered much about our priming and practice process, but those questions in the morning, I think, facilitate just an amazing day. Those reflection questions for the evening facilitate making a better day the next day because you have that little bit of reflection. But then she also said that she loves doing this little 30-minute walk in the morning with her dog, and I think she says she listens to podcasts or books. But anyway, I think that's so beautiful to set aside a little bit of time, ideally every morning, where you have this little quiet time to yourself, you're doing your journaling, and maybe you're going for a walk and just thinking about an amazing day or learning some new concepts or something like that. And by the way, we have an amazing podcast, so that would be something that you could listen to. But I think it's really important to set aside that time for yourself, because by the time we start work and we get back into our family situation, the chaos is on, And then I want to reinforce this idea of the changes that other people notice in us are very difficult maybe for us to notice ourselves. So we need to acknowledge that praise and acknowledge those things that people are saying, because a lot of times it's very hard for us to see those changes in ourselves. You got to give a lifetime health concept like this SHT program and progression. You have to give it time, all right? You have to believe in what you're doing, which is why we go through this educational piece about it. If you have any doubts whatsoever, watch the videos, read the books that we put out links to. This is not foreign stuff anymore. When I started preaching my real food concepts back in 2012 and 13 here in Vegas, people thought I was absolutely crazy for telling them to eat butter and bacon. And now, we've got paleo, primal, Weston A. Price, low carb, keto, all these really popular movements. And now we're starting to see it a lot in mainstream news sources that real food is the way to go. Well, maybe meat's not so bad for you. I mean, we're still always going to have the meat, haters out there, but it's becoming more and more and more mainstream. That's another reason why we really recommend watching these documentaries, The Magic Pill, absolutely amazing. And a lot of the little videos that we've sent out before are absolutely amazing. So all that stuff reinforces everything that we're learning together, so it's not just some crazy bald guy up here telling you what to do. We have other things that you can learn from that corroborate, or confirm a lot of the things that we learn and experience together, okay? What else? Yeah, Don wanted to say a big shout out and thank you to Amy and Sonia and Kat for being supportive for her. And I think that's everything, be easy on yourself going through this process. This is a lifelong journey. Hold on to the good things that are happening for you. Be patient with the things that aren't. Understand that we need diligence. We need 100% days for as many days as we can get. Do what feels right. If these little, experiments like low carb and the cleanse thing coming up are a little bit too advanced for you because you're still trying to get the basics down, that's perfectly fine too. Just learn from the information, but try to be 100% real foodie as many days as you can. Try not to turn to those approved options very much at all, except on special occasions. Pay attention to what people are saying to you and the compliments that you're getting. And if you're struggling, if you have issues, just reach out, because that's why we're here. I have a whole private practice here that I can visit with you, and we can work with all kinds of different things to get you down your path. Okay, we really care. We want to see everyone progress, but we've been through this enough to know that everyone's going to have a different journey, and we want to support you no matter where you're at in that journey. So I think that's about it, guys. Love you so much. Cannot wait to see you all at this next meeting coming up.